In the spirit of Halloween last year, I asked my brothers what game I should play for spooky season, and they chose to throw me into Bloodborne. Now they know that I'm a massive scaredy cat. I'm terrified of everything. I'm easily jump scared and stressed out by overwhelming situations. I get freaked out when the sun goes down in Animal Crossing. During E3 2014, right after Little Big Planet 3, I saw the first trailer for Bloodborne.
Welcome to the world of Bloodborne.
I watched a shadowy figure drag the mangled corpse of some butchered fleshy thing into an alleyway and immediately figured that this was a game that I would never, ever play. Everything about Bloodborne chilled me to my core, from the twisted designs of its enemies, the eerie environments, the cosmic horror, and the awful existentialism of how this all came to be in the first place. Bloodborne is the kind of game that from a cursory glance would have me going, nope. I hate that. I'm scared. Get me out of here! And yet, after 20 plus hours of playtime, I beat the damned thing. And not only that, I actually loved the game. Enough to rank it in as one of my favorite games of all time. And enough that I would even call myself a Souls-like fan, someone who would seek out more of this experience. So what was it about Bloodborne that turned me into the pain-seeking, punishment-coveting player that I am today? How did a game that my past self would run screaming and crying from change me so much? What was it about the Bloodborne experience of throwing myself at frustrating battles over and over again that had me returning for more? Let me take you on a journey of how Bloodborne taught me to embrace difficulty. When I was a kid, I played Final Fantasy X on the PS2, one of my favorite games to this day. I played it religiously on the little TV in my grandmother's house that gave me an electric shock every time I plugged it in. I loved the story, the music, the goofy-ass characters, and especially the turn-based combat and optional side content. I felt like a god of strategy. I dodged over 200 lightning bolts and chased butterflies in Macalania Forest. I played the game from top to bottom over and over again.
I don't even know who you are.
And then the Dark Eons attacked. The Dark Eons were additional super bosses added to the international version of Final Fantasy X about half a year after the original release. They were ridiculously hard, and most could easily full wipe your party. They were optional, but they were also placed inconveniently in parts of the game that cut you off if you were trying to backtrack to an older area. And if you weren't aware of them, it was a nasty surprise. I remember trying to return to the temple in Besid to get the additional overdrive attack for Valifor and running smack dab into the dark Valifor fight. I remember the first time I got a full party wipe. It made me put the game down, and I didn't pick it up for a long time.
I don't want to play with you anymore.
This became a pattern throughout much of my gaming life. I'd start a game and enjoy the power fantasy of being a godlike protagonist, but the moment I hit a difficulty spike or a stressful situation, everything would grind to a screeching halt. I've lost count of the number of games I've thrown to the bottom of the backlog or just straight up uninstalled. And sure, I'd sometimes make a token effort to push through, but almost always I'd give up. That changed when I picked up Hades. Playing Hades was the first time that I experienced defeat, and it didn't feel like a crushing personal failing. It's a game that encouraged me to try my hardest and rewarded me for my efforts. I could write a whole other essay waxing poetic about how much I adore this game and why it sits on my top 10 games of all time. But what I really want to talk about is how Hades used death and defeat in its gameplay loop to help me embrace failure, preparing me for my experience with Bloodborne a few years later. Whenever I died during a run in Hades, it never truly felt like a failure because the game rewarded me by allowing me to keep resources I gained during the run, as most roguelikes do. But more importantly, it unlocked new story beats upon my return to the House of Hades. Is it possible to beat Hades on a first run? Yes, it is. And I've actually tried to do so for the sake of the challenge, but you're not supposed to if you want the best experience with the game's storytelling. Hades eased me into loss and defeat by weaving them beautifully into the story itself. Now, instead of staring at the mirror in self-loathing when I failed, I could look at the literal mirror in the game to improve my stats for a little more survivability on the next run. When I met my demise, I could go back to the House of Hades and try my hand at romancing both Thanatos and Megara. And in this way, Hades built my tolerance for losing in a game. I left the experience treating myself more kindly when I faced defeat. So Hades was instrumental in helping me get over my biggest hurdle, the psychological wall. Before Hades, I wasn't a bad gamer per se, but failure or even the presumption of failure would stop me in my tracks. But although Hades taught me to embrace defeat and keep going, it didn't ignite my desire to seek out difficult or challenging games. That took a game that was much harder, much darker, and much, much bloodier. Bloodborne was a terrifying experience for me. It stressed me out. It pushed me to my limits. In my first playthrough, I approached every new corner with the utmost caution, creeping along inch by inch, jumping at every shadow, wondering what fresh new hell awaited me. I spent the entirety of the game in a state of lockjawed, full-body tensed panic. The starting area of Yharnam is burned into the back of my eyelids from the number of times I've died in every dark and dank corner of the map, meeting my demise at the hands, or claws, of each and every horrible creature residing in each and every horrible nook and cranny of this cursed place. I felt like I was spiraling into madness, barely surviving each encounter only to run right into this guy. I desperately slashed and rolled through this encounter, battling this hellion with its unbearable screech. Battling this damn camera. And if I died, I had to fight my way back only to be curb stomped and screamed at. I felt a little insane when I beat him, and then I found out that he wasn't even the way forward? No, that would be the cherry on top of my complete despair. The roadblock to the rest of the actual game. Enter Father Gascoigne. Father Gascoigne was the linchpin to my Bloodborne experience. If I didn't defeat him, then, well, it was the literal end of the road for me and the game. There was nowhere else to go, no other prey to be slain or vanquished, and this battle would take everything I had. Bloodborne's first actual boss fight was the perfect crucible for a gamer like me, who used to approach any combat-oriented game with mindless recklessness. I quickly learned that my past aggressive playstyle wasn't gonna fly, and Father Gascoigne was quick to stomp my bad habits out of me. So I died, over, and over, and over again. But with each new attempt, something beautiful happened. Combing through the footage of my multiple attempts and deaths, I saw the gradual metamorphosis in my playstyle happen. I started to become more careful and mindful. I started paying attention to the boss's movements and looking for my windows of opportunity to dodge and parry. I started to use the terrain to my advantage. The run back for another attempt when I failed meant nothing to me. This bridge full of angry villagers and this stupid flaming boulder, nothing. I was laser focused. I passed through the fog and failed to avoid the deafening blast of Gascoigne's gun, but it was okay. I paid him back with a few swipes of my saw cleaver until he retaliated with his axe. I backed off to get my bearings. For a moment, Gascoigne had me pinned with a series of attacks, but I calmly popped a single blood vial before my focus snapped into place and I hit him with the parry, allowing me to pull off a satisfying visceral attack. As he recovered, I went in for a couple more hits. He extended his trick axe and I backed up wary, but the instinct to panic had been beaten out of me in the number of deaths before. For a harrowing moment, he had me on the ropes again, but it was okay. I put some distance between us, using the gravestones as a barrier while I regrouped. I extended my own blade, and we traded blows back and forth, engaging in a dangerous dance. We took the fight away from the gravestones, and I dodged the wild swing of his axe. As he readied himself for another whirling spin, I charged up my attack and caught him with my blade. I kept trying to parry him before moving in aggressively, mindful of Gascoigne's impending transformation phase as I shaved away at his health. As Gascoigne's body glowed and he turned into his beast form, I backed away to give myself some breathing room. I kept the distance, and he leapt into the air before crashing down into a wall of gravestones, and they crumbled like sandcastles. Gascoigne was more aggressive now, and I decided that it was time to match his energy. I moved in close. These next few moments would decide the victor. I stayed close to him, kiting to the side to avoid his wild swings but never straying too far, getting in my hits when his back was turned to me. He caught me in the swipe of his claws, and I backed away, quickly, using the opportunity to heal. I watched his movements carefully, dodging his attack before going in for a charge attack. I slashed his health bar down a few more times, and now he was only a single hit away. I tried to go for another charge attack, but mistimed my swing, which cost me. I healed up and took a deep breath. He did a series of swings, and I skirted around, and then went in for the kill. It finally happened. I beat Father Gascoigne. I'd beaten the first boss of the game. According to PlayStation statistics, less than 50% of Bloodborne players have beaten him, and I had joined these hallowed ranks. I had officially made it to the big leagues. I was a god among men, untouchable, incomprehensible, inscrutable. And now I had to play the rest of the game. Bloodborne opens up a lot after the first section of Central Yharnam. Things only got more terrifying and harrowing for me having so much freedom and non-linearity all of a sudden. After an ordeal with Papa G, my past self would have felt demoralized and demotivated to do anything more, but instead I came out of that experience craving more of the type of challenge I'd just been through. Within its first area, Bloodborne had taught me how to become a better player and how to appreciate its combat design. I'd gotten a taste of the bloodlust and the hunt, and there was more prey in the world of Bloodborne with which I could whet my blade. But to be honest, Bloodborne peaks early with the Father Gascoigne fight, and it's a hard act to follow.
I'm better than you, my shape up better, my car faster, my drip better, my clothes fit better.
Compared to Father Gascoigne, the mandatory main story fights that come after just don't match up in terms of excitement and sheer fun. At least for me. But here's the thing, the key word is mandatory. The real pull of Bloodborne is in what lies off the beaten path, what horrors await around every dark and scary corner. Sure, you could just avoid them and beeline the main story, but they're there, in the shadows, taunting you. I want to remind the viewer I was, am, and always will be a scaredy cat, but Bloodborne challenged me to face my fears and to delve deep into the horror, to surpass my limitations and reach for what was on the other side. A more rewarding experience. For example, in Cathedral Ward after Father Gascoigne, I had to take a detour through Old Yharnam where I met this lovely man with a Gatling gun, this horrifying sight, and then fought this asshole. And to think I could have skipped all of this. I could have farmed for 10,000 blood echoes to buy the 100 Chief emblem needed to open this gate, and that would have given me early access to the mandatory boss fight with Vicar Amelia to progress the main story. To think I could have ignored the best NPC in the game, Eileen the Crow, and her hidden questline, and arguably the hardest hunter fight in the game. To think I could have foregone the entirety of Upper Cathedral Ward, not dealt with these vicious werewolves, not lost all my insight to these Cthulhu dudes.
Oh god, oh god, oh my god, oh my god, oh good god, oh my god, oh my god!
And then not fought one of my favorite boss fights in Bloodborne, Ebrietas. To think I could have avoided trudging through poisonous, stinky doo-doo water in this out-of-the-way cave, and avoided climbing this comically long ladder to gain access to Yosefka's clinic to find the summons to Cainhurst Castle. To think that I could have skipped this completely optional level with the spooky ghost ladies trying to stab me, and these ugly gargoyle creatures, and the worst runback of all time, to this insanely precarious boss fight with Marty Logarius on a snowy rooftop. To think I could have finished the game so much faster had I just let Gurman cut my head off.
No, I don't think I will.
And not fought him in one of the prettiest, most scenic, and memorable boss arenas I've ever seen in a video game. To think that I could have skipped one of my favorite boss fights. Mr. Burial Blade himself, Mr. I'm not just sitting up, I'm standing up, and I can leap into the sky and destroy you. Mr. Haunting boss music in a moonlit field. To think that I could have ended the game on Margot's wet nurse instead. The old me would have taken the easy way out, the path of least resistance, and I would have missed out on one of the most fulfilling experiences in my gaming career. Bloodborne appealed directly to my JRPG roots by putting its most exciting content out of the way, and again, this game was scary for me. But if I wanted to fight Ebrietas, then I had no choice but to suck it up and brave the dark horrors. I had to push through the gross field of alien babies to reach my eerie eldritch prize. Bloodborne taught me many harsh lessons. Oh my god, no. But in the process, I grew from a complacent coward to a careful combatant, and the game rewarded me for daring to engage with difficulty on an intrinsic level that I didn't know I needed. I never thought in my wildest dreams that I could ever play a game like Bloodborne, let alone even beat the game. And yet here I was, 3 umbilical cords consumed and facing down the moon presence. Despite my numerous setbacks, my insecurities, fears, and doubts, I kept going, and I made it. I love and play video games in part for escapism, but in larger part to play in a beautifully designed sandbox where I can reach achievable, satisfying goals. Life is hard enough as it is, and if I'm going to struggle, I'd like to know that there's a prize at the end of the tunnel. Video games are the only context that make me believe sayings like, things are sweeter because they were difficult, or suffering breeds success. Bloodborne ignited my love for difficult games by making me appreciate the struggle. It threw me into harrowing situations where I could only rely on my two hands and my experience, and I threw myself at the same brick wall over and over again to overcome its challenges. Sure, I had the help from my brothers in co-op for the battles they deemed, quote, not fun, but at the end of the day, they couldn't hold the controller for me, nor would I want them to. They were simply there for me. Wait, why is your name red? Yelling in my ear on Discord, encouraging me that I could push through. I hope that anyone who loves and plays video games and felt the same doubts and apprehension that I did about the Souls-like genre will give it a chance. You could start with Code Vein, or for an easier experience, try Jedi Fallen Order and its sequel Jedi Survivor. One huge caveat though, Bloodborne, to be honest, is pretty brutal as an introduction to the Souls-like genre. It's not the most accessible for newcomers with zero experience due to its lack of tutorializing and direction. I mean, at the beginning of the game, an old man spouts a bunch of nonsense, creepy weird stuff happens, then you wake up and are just told to seek pale blood. And its inaccessibility is only made worse by the fact that you can only play the game on PlayStation 4 or 5. Oh, and on that note, playing it on PS5 is the recommended experience because, holy low times Batman. I have a few other choice criticisms for Bloodborne, like how the gameplay flow is interrupted when you have to grind for blood vials. I'd rather have a set of finite heals that resets whenever you respawn. Its RPG elements are also pretty weak, obscure, and terribly explained. But what Bloodborne does right, it does so well. It had to in order for someone like me to brave its horrors. Oh my god, no. No. At time of writing, it's been almost 9 years since Bloodborne was released exclusively on PlayStation 4 in 2015. But even though the game has been out for so long, and most every secret and speculation regarding its mechanics, world building, and lore has been deciphered, popular content creators still make Bloodborne-related content to this day, and that made picking up an almost decade-old game feel like I wasn't late to the party. So when you're ready, good hunter, come join the hunt, and then join all of us Bloodborne players who cry and pray for a remaster or sequel from FromSoft. It's gonna happen one day, folks. Someday. Right? Hi, I'm Izzy. It's nice to finally meet you all, or at least those of you who've made it this far to the end of my first full video essay. Yay! I made this video on Bloodborne because if I think about it, it's rather fitting. My first foray into this world of content creation and the parallel of my first anxiety-riddled trip through Bloodborne. I've always wanted to create a long-form video like this one, and I want to keep doing the same. So if you liked this video, please consider dropping a like and subscribing to my channel. Leave a comment as well. And for a step further, consider dropping by for one of my live streams. I stream 4 days a week, usually from Tuesday through Friday for 6 to 7 hours starting at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm inviting you to stop on by and say hello as I play a variety of games like Liza P, my latest obsession, gacha games like Genshin Impact, Honkai Star Rail, and of course I am currently playing Bloodborne, the Old Hunters DLC. Woo! I want to make a special shout out to my dear friend Autumn for proofreading 5 drafts of this script and yelling at me about grammar. I love you, Autumn! Most of the time, you're right. Every time. Once again, thanks for watching, and remember, we're all trying our best, and whatever peace looks like for you in this world, I hope that's what you receive. Tenfold.